Hi, you're listening to a student-focused episode of the Sociology Show podcast. If you're studying the subject at GCSE, A-level, foundation, degree, or any other discipline, then this podcast could be of help to you. If you have a question for the show, then you can email the Sociology Show podcast at gmail.com, and one of the teachers, lecturers, examiners, or experts will answer your question for you. You can sponsor the show on the GoFundMe page and subscribe on all the usual podcast platforms. If you're going to class, going to the gym, or just chilling, put your headphones in and let's be sociology geeks together, eh? Hello and welcome to a student-focused episode of the Sociology Show podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Collins. High-quality student books, teacher guides and unbeatable value revision for GCSE and A-level sociology. And so Sociology Show listeners can get 25% off Collins sociology resources until the end of December 2021, including the new book, How to be a Sociologist, an inspiring introduction to studying sociology at A-level and university. Simply head to collins.co.uk/sociology show and enter the code sociology show at the checkout. Terms and conditions apply. I'll give you that again. It's collins.co.uk/sociology show. And if you enter the code sociology show at the checkout, then you are entitled to 25% off Collins sociology resources. The Sociology Show podcast is also brought to you in association with Tutor to You Sociology, the exam performance specialist for A-level and GCSE sociology students and teachers. And so you can visit their website, which is tutor2u.net/sociology, for revision guides, flashcards, revision videos, and everything else that you need for your A-level or GCSE sociology studies. And so, yes, it is student takeover time. For those of you that haven't listened to one of these episodes before, this is where the Thursday shows are given up to you to showcase your work. If you are studying at GCSE, A-level, degree, foundation, whichever different discipline you're studying sociology, and you've got something to say, or you've done a piece of research yourself, or you want to do a debate, whatever it may be, this is an opportunity to show your views, your opinions, and listen to your voices as well. And so for this first takeover of the new series, I've got some of my own students. I teach at Basvick College, which is in Hove. You may be aware of that. You've probably heard of Brighton and Hove. And so my students were given a challenge. They were each given a different researcher, a different sociologist, and they had to do a little bit of research on that sociologist themselves and then do their own research based on something to do with that area. So this group of students were asked to do something in relation to Donna Haraway's research. And so they came up with the following hypothesis. Their hypothesis was that Twitter and Instagram has given women and non-binary individuals more freedom with gender expression. And so you're going to hear voices. You're going to hear from Imogen, Erin, Rosie and Juno. I'll give you that hypothesis again. So they came up with Twitter and Instagram has given women and non-binary individuals more freedom with gender expression. Enjoy.
Our hypothesis is that Twitter and Instagram has given young women and non-binary individuals more freedom with their gender expression. When operationalizing our key terms, we define non-binary as people assigned female at birth or individuals who use the pronouns she, they, them, or similar who don't identify with their gender binary. We define women as cis women who identify with their gender assigned at birth. We also define gender expression as your gender identity and how you present yourself.
The way that our research question relates to Haraway's research was through taking her study of how women especially, but everyone could use non-binary identities online to escape gender stereotypes and outside influences, and so they could just be like who they wanted to be online. So we kind of took that literally in terms of like non-binary identity and sort of changed that into how non-binary people and women have used online spaces to feel comfortable or like explore their gender identity. For our sampling for the research, we used volunteer, snowball, opportunity and some aspect of stratified because we knew that, especially for the interviews, we wanted to get a mixture and even balance of non-binary people and women. And the snowball one was actually particularly useful for getting like a better outreach into the non-binary community because like it is sort of like once you have one person, they often have connections within like the community, and we did 4 interviews and a questionnaire, and the questionnaire got 1,400 responses.
For our quantitative method, we used questionnaires because they were anonymous and we thought they would reach a larger audience. And also we thought that this subject might be too difficult for people to talk about in real life, so using an anonymous form would be easier for them to be honest. In our questionnaire, we received 1,400 responses. Our findings found that 15% of them used they, them pronouns, 25% used she, they pronouns, 43% used she, her pronouns, and 17% used other pronouns. 56% of respondents said that social media helped them discover their gender identity, and this was through education or normalisation and representation in the media. 88% said they felt more comfortable online with their gender identity than in real life. 61% said they had to defend their identity online. 53% of women said they felt more comfortable being feminine online, and 69% of women said they'd experienced more sexism in real life than online.
So in order to kind of cross-reference our different research methods, we also did a qualitative one, which was semi-structured, kind of structured interviews. They were originally just going to be structured, but I feel like we didn't cover necessarily the full breadth of what we could have. So during the interviews, there was some kind of going off and letting the interviewee kind of lead with what they wanted to say. And this was to, like, interpretivists say that interviews and kind of that, like, getting a better verstehen would, like, increase the validity of your research, and they are also anonymous, so that's more ethical. And there were levels of reliability again with this kind of semi-structure. You could probably, by listening to them, you could definitely see exactly what questions were asked and ask them again. And we did consider that there might be some form of interviewer effect, as, like, we knew some of the people that we interviewed, so they might, in a way that was good, it might help them feel more comfortable talking, kind of opening up, especially once they knew it was anonymous. But because we knew them, again, there might have been slightly different dynamic between the researcher and the interviewee. So I think talking to people with real life experiences actually, like, questions which helped prove or disprove our hypothesis were particularly useful, and obviously they had, like, real insight to give us, as opposed to just sort of like numbers. So we're going to insert some sort of clips of interviews with women and some of the non-binary people we interviewed, and try and explain how what they've said proves our hypothesis.
What sort of sexism have you experienced online? Not so much with myself, but I've definitely witnessed when women, especially women of colour, come forward with their, like, stuff like body hair and stuff. They experience a lot of backlash and racist slurs and all of that, and it's like, soon as women step out of what men see as beauty, or, like, see as what a woman should be, it's like a whole backlash and a whole, like, movement, and then the more women that contribute, the more challenging it gets, I say.
What sort of, or if any, backlash have you felt online?
I felt like for girls on social media, it, like, especially through, like, secondary school, it was like I had to fit in with the male gaze. Like, I had to post things so that boys would appreciate it, and if they didn't, it'd make me feel bad. And it was mainly like I felt like as though boys controlled what girls would post on social media.
Have you explained how, if at all, have you felt like uncomfortable presenting a certain way, specifically online, and does that differ to how you present in person?
I've been, like, hesitant to put they pronouns because, like, ideally I'd probably go by they, them, but there's always the risk of, like, my brothers going onto my profile and seeing they, them, and then they'll be like, what does that mean? And then they'll ask, and then I'll get back to my parents, and, like, so that sort of stuff. But, like, I feel like with my friends, I can just be like, hey, they pronouns are great.
Yeah.
If it's an okay question in terms of other non-binary influences or other female or female presenting people, how do they sort of...
Obviously learning that, like, gender and clothes aren't the same thing, so I can dress how I want and identify how I want. I can wear a skirt and that doesn't make me a female. I can wear a male's outfit in quotation marks,
air marks.
and I'm not a man.
Yeah.
It's more comfortable.
So Rosie and I did the interviews, and I interviewed the non-binary people, and Rosie...
I interviewed the women.
And I think the kind of trend we found, well, you might see in some of the clips that we've inserted, was for my interviews, like online and social media, well, specifically Instagram and Twitter in our case, were really useful for non-binary people, like to be able to, discover, who they wanted to be.
Whereas I found that the people who I interviewed who identified with she, her, didn't really find it helpful in discovering their identity, but found that it really helped them understand non-binary people's point of view, and it really educated them.
The educative function was specifically mentioned a lot, that sort of even if they kind of already knew who they were or who they wanted to be, it was education and reaching out to other communities online was really useful. And again, when in our quantitative, I think Amy talked about how there were those three kind of education, normalization and representation, sort of those are the three things that just cropped up again and again.
It kind of supported our hypothesis and Haraway's findings, because it helped women kind of have a gender-free online experience.
I think the realization, I mean, we kind of already thought this because we put it in our hypothesis, but realizing backed up with our big questionnaire and stuff, that online, whilst you would assume that kind of people were more aggressive, I don't know, because of the anonymity online, you would expect more discrimination there, but I think from the questionnaires especially, we kind of found that people were more likely to experience sexism in real life, and online could actually be a kind of escape. So that kind of supported our hypothesis. I mean, it did. I would say that from our research, it's definitely been supported that you've got for non-binary people especially, getting that place to express their identity online, and for women it was more of a kind of escaping just everyday sexism.
Our research might not be representative because of the people that we interviewed in the she, her interviews. Basically, none of them had big platforms, so they didn't experience much sexism online, whereas influencers and maybe public figures would definitely experience a lot of hate and sexism when online.
The Sociology Show podcast relies on the kind contributions of sponsorship and donations. If you enjoy the show, then you can help with the hosting costs by donating as little as £5 on the GoFundMe page. Simply visit uk.gofundme.com and search for The Sociology Show. If you can donate, then you will be sent a Sociology Show pen as a small thank you for your continued support of the show.